Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pink Atheist. I'm your host, Rachel Johnson, and with me today is my co-host, Jimmy Williamson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today we have a really good show scheduled for you. We're going to be talking with Brian Sapient from Atheism United and Rational Responders. We're also going to have Bill Ferguson, board member for the SSA, as well as Skeptic Money. And we've also got Blair Scott on as a co-host for the day from American Atheist. Blair, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, guys.
Wonderful to have you.
All right. And the reason we're doing that is because Rachel is a bit under the weather today, so her voice is not all up to par. So we've got Blair in to stand in for her, and we definitely appreciate him doing that.
Absolutely.
Well, it's my pleasure, but I have a funny feeling that Rachel's sick voice is probably better than my not sick voice.
No, I'm not sure about that.
Well, to start it off with, let's go ahead and bring Brian Sapient on and have a talk with him real quick. Brian, are you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
All right.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Rachel.
To start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about Atheism United? I understand that's something you started up recently.
Yeah, Atheism United is my attempt at trying to do a better job of uniting the atheist community. You guys well know that they talk about us getting together as like herding cats. And my hope is that Atheism United, at the bare minimum, can serve as a representation of all of the different types of atheist and secular groups that are out there. And the start of that is a compilation of a list of URL addresses and website addresses for every single atheist or atheist sympathizing type website, whatever it is you choose to call yourself, whether it's agnostic or secular or bright. Every atheist website in the world listed on one page. And so, that's what I sent you to the other day, and we added your name too. And I think it's just important that every single atheist group in the country be represented. And we're gonna do some things with that list down the road that are some fun marketing campaigns that draw people's attention to it. And I have all kinds of reasons for doing it, and I think it'll help us all in the Google battle when people go to search for us or for the topic of religion in general. They're going to find our sites ahead of some of our competitors in the realm of all of the different types of thinking or thoughts that one can have, whether it be, religious or non. We are going to be slightly better in the Google battle if I have my way. Right. So that's the gist of Atheism United, and we're going to do a lot more, and it's been slow getting it going, and, like everything I've ever done online, it takes about 3 times longer than I expect, and in this case, 3 times longer times 3. So it was supposed to be done last winter, and for now, all we have is the wiki site up, which allows anybody to add their website address to it. And, as I think most know, I've done things controversial. I've had disagreements with other atheist groups, and I think the point of this, for me, is to really show that I practice what I preach, in the sense that I do believe that we all share a common goal or a common thought, and I think it's important that we all work together in some way. And I personally have added the names of groups and sites that I have had disagreements with, that I would be considered to be not on the best of terms with, and to extend that olive branch so that everybody can see how important it is for us all to be equally represented in one place on the internet. I think it'll be really powerful when it's complete.
Yeah, and we did a Google search on my computer the other day when I had you on the phone to see where it ranked when I just searched for atheist sites, and 2 of your sites were in the top 5, Rational Responders as well as Atheism United. And I would say that's pretty impressive to get up in there. But I also think American Atheist was also in the top, and then that's, of course, Blair. And Blair's with us, too. So, we've got both of y'all on here, and y'all were both in the top 5.
Yeah, I think this idea that Brian is talking about bringing the groups together, and not just national groups but local groups, I think you're talking about as well, Brian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is vital. This is absolutely important, and I support this 100%, and I know American Atheist does as well, because this is something we've talked about as well. We have a group database on our webpage, but it's not even close to what the degree that Brian is talking about. We specifically focus on local groups, to the point of making sure that when somebody contacts us, we can say, look, you're not alone. There is a group in Hattiesburg, or there is a group in, Panama City or whatever. So this idea of bringing the groups together in a common location and listing everything and everybody, I think is an amazing idea, and you have my full and 100% support, Brian, and the support of American Atheists in this endeavor as well. And the second thing I would like to point out about this is that I'm not sure this would have been possible even a year ago, to the degree that I think you and I probably think it's possible now. And I think that's because the Reason Rally was a huge game changer for intra-group cooperation. I think it really emphasized to the groups on a national level that cooperation was absolutely vital in moving forward. You may or may not agree with me, but that's my personal opinion anyway.
Well, it's just my personal, the Reason Rally was important, extremely important, and I can understand what type of impact that you're thinking it made. For me personally, I always had this idea of getting us all to work together, and I always did it wrong for lack of understanding how it should be done, and it took 10 years of experience in trying to do it in the various ways that I tried to do it, to realize that I'm going to have to do it in the way that this is starting, which is to say I don't need the cooperation of, let's just pick a name, CFI, for example. I don't need them to agree with what I'm doing to put their name on this list. And so, in a way, we will all be united, even if these are groups that wouldn't typically choose to maybe work on a project with me. I'm going to advertise for them. And, as we all know, like you say, you have a list of names on American Atheist. I had a list of people on RationalResponders.com. All of the atheist groups, all the various groups had sites that we would send people to. But because of the politics of, our different groups, and because of our allegiances, those groups would tend to be the ones that are closest to our hearts or closest to our specific mission statements or our own purposes. And this was just something where I thought, let's get together everybody, even if they're completely different from my mission statement or my purpose, because we do share this one thing in common, that we abstain from a belief in a God. And I like the fact that we are also different, that's what makes us so amazing in terms of how we think, that we think differently than the people that just follow the mold and are just sheep to this, a specific religious concept, and they just, go about their lives continuing to follow and follow and follow. And many of us are leaders and innovators, and we have our own ideas as to where we would like to see the movement go. And I wanted that to be represented. I wanted people, specifically Christians actually, to have the opportunity to see us in one place and to see just how different some of us can be by having an easy way to find all of the various sites. And if you go through Google and you try to find some of the more obscure atheist sites, you're going to have a really hard time getting down to page 40, where you're going to find great sites. And they're just buried. And they're buried especially in a sea of our competition, for lack of a better word, are the people that disagree with us. So if you do a search for, say, is there a God, in the first 100 pages, you're going to find 75% of that is Christian, theistic. There's going to be 10% of that that's us. There's going to be like 5% of it that's Facebook, and 5% of it that's like YouTube. These are unimportant sites. These are you don't want to be directed to a YouTube video. You want to be directed to a if we had our way, they would be coming to something where we are represented the way we want to be represented, not the way that they want to represent us. So I'm ranting here, but the idea of where I want to go with this is that by, say, American Atheist linking to this specific page, and anybody who links to this specific page, it will increase the Google worth of every name on that list. And so when I'm done and I'm ready, I'm going to heavily advertise that list all over the net, and I'm going to direct people to that list. And so when you combine these elements, any name that is on that page is going to have its Google's, and obviously every search engine, its worth is going to increase exponentially. And so now when somebody does that search, maybe on the first 100 pages of Google, instead of 20% of those sites being atheistic, maybe it'll be 35%. Any improvement that I can make is an improvement. And so it'll help us all. And the nice thing about it is anybody who links to it is helping the competition, the other groups. And Blair, well that, as much as we have intergroup cooperation, we all need our own members in our groups in order to function. So I think this is just a really nice sort of jumping on the back of what you said, where we have the intergroup cooperation. It's really nice for all of us to help each other get bigger,
Yeah, there's always going to be competition for members. There's no way to get around that. But what we've learned in the past couple of years is that the competition should not be and should never be cutthroat. It should be friendly. And that dynamic has changed over the last couple of years, and it's amazing to see. And it's not just the atheism or lack of belief that all these groups have in common either. If you go to all these groups, there's three large things that they tend to agree with. And that's the separation of church and state, civil rights for non-theists, and true freedom of religion, which means freedom from religion. I mean, all those groups agree with those three main goals, and we just go at them with different methods and different types and different ways, etc. But we're all heading to the same place. We're all heading to the same goal. And so this idea that there shouldn't be cooperation, I don't understand that, and why people even think that way. There should absolutely be cooperation. There should absolutely be, if not outright hand-holding, at least going, hey, look, if you don't like our method, go check out this group. They're probably more in line with your way of thinking and your way of methodology and approach. That, at a minimum, should be what's going on. And I'm glad to see more and more groups are doing that, and I'm especially glad to hear that you're taking this project on. I'm with you 100%, man.
Thanks. I'm glad. We'll need all the support we can get, obviously. So I can't wait to get it, really to the point where, like Jimmy said, I mean, if you do a search, everybody's computer is different, but if you do a search for atheist sites, it should come up pretty quick as the Atheism United huge list of atheist sites page. And, to any listeners, it's important that they go on there and add their site or the site that they love the most. They're going to find that they're going to have a hard time adding a site that isn't already there. But I want obscure sites. I want the individual blogger who's an atheist who writes about atheism once every 10 posts, or an issue that's important to atheists once every 10 posts. And there's a whole section for bloggers. There's a whole section for local groups. There's a whole section for Facebook groups, So it's important that people go on there and add their information, and I'm going to help make more people find out about them, is my goal on this project. So.
Yeah. I will ask this. I know it's a wiki site where it's actually the user inputs the information. Is there any governing in place to keep religious groups away from posting their stuff there?
At this point, I'm able to check every single entry that's added to the site. I personally am going through that, and as you know, you can see a wiki history, so you can see that I'm removing 6 pieces of spam a day. We don't have that many people that are adding information to it, but part of that is because it'll need advertising later, and it's actually pretty full. Me and a few friends have added really most everything, but I've got no problem adding moderators or other people who have extra powers. As you know, it being a wiki, you could notice a link on there that is incorrect, that's a Christian group or something, and remove it yourself. You have that power. Anybody who logs in has that power, and then I have that power to overturn it when I see it in the history. So,
yeah. That's the only thing I was thinking, is just moderating it would be an issue because if you get a bad group on there that's just causing you problems, and they have 10 people, you're going to have 11 to counter it.
Well, obviously we can ban somebody who insists on adding Christian sites to it or something like that. We haven't had that issue yet. I think there was one person that added one site that was not correct. Right now, my bigger issue is the Autobot spamming type of thing, where there's all kinds of bad posts being made that by a series of letters, screen name that make no sense. 24 letters in a row that don't have any vowels, and that's the screen name, and they're posting about something in a foreign language, and so I just have to remove that every day. Oh, and with that said, speaking of foreign language, we want to include international in this. So this is the idea, is everywhere in the world. So as much as we talk about local groups, local groups for Australia and local groups for France and local groups for India. When the website takes the next step, we're going to have bloggers from all over the world, and they'll be able to post about whatever it is that's important to them. And I want to have a very, very wide variety of thought processes in the blog as well. I really want to show just how different we all can be and yet have these similar traits. Blair really hit on them. Blair, what were they again, the 3 that we have in common?
Separation church-state, civil rights for non-theists, and true freedom of religion, which of course means freedom from religion.
On the homepage of Atheism United, there's a link to some things that I thought we shared maybe even more in common, and I'll probably be off. I'm sure I'm off. But I think that many of the groups share, for example, the desire to educate the people of the world on atheism, or to show the good that atheists do just for the sake of doing good, or to establish tolerance in other nations for atheism and atheists, to unite in doing good together, to protect the rights of atheists and anyone who is being oppressed. How does that sound to you so far? Do you agree with all them?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think what I would like to do, and there's another 10 points that I came up with on the site as a vision statement. What I would like to do eventually is try to have like some sort of voting system where different, basically anybody who ends up posting on the site that we can figure out as an atheist will get the privileges to vote on our site. And I'm sure there'll be somebody that'll, get in there that isn't really supposed to get in there. But we'll do the best we can at vetting these voters. And basically anybody, no matter what type of atheist they are, will have the right to vote. And I want to see, as we vote on the site, what sorts of things we do all share in common. You've narrowed it down to 3 that you feel. I wonder if the list is more broad, and just how much each one of those we share. You know, what is the one issue that we all have the most in common? You know, and what is the 5th most important issue to it, and what are they in order? And this is next year, but the hope is that we can really start to pin down, as much as atheism is simply non-belief in a God, what else is it? Not always speaking, but generally speaking, what else is it? And so that'll all be part of it. And I think that'll help unite us even more and tell you, as, you know, somebody an American atheist, things that you might want to focus on, because so many, you know, share that. As much as you feel like you've got these 3 down, what's the 4th, you know? And that's what I'd like to find out.
All right. Rachel, you're in the background. I know you've got a voice issue, but do you have any questions or comments for Brian?
No, I think what he's doing is actually really amazing, and I really support that. And actually, after the show, I'll be adding my stuff to his site so that, you know, my name is up there and our names. But yeah, it's absolutely wonderful what he's doing for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have anything else, let me go over a few more of these. Can I do that? A couple of these
Sure.
things that I think we share in common. And I know, again, this isn't everybody, but at least the groups, the various groups like, you know, like CFI and like American Separation, you know, and like American Atheists, I think that we do share most of these. I believe that we want to try to make changes in government policy and goals that protect us. We want to help all societies move towards global secularization. And maybe that's probably a hot button one there. There are probably some people that don't want to make that push. Here's where you really start to get into the politics of it. I know, Blair, that's your area of expertise. I believe that we should champion goals that serve the people, such as making health care and a full education affordable or free for all. And I know I can get everybody on affordable. I'm not sure I can get everybody on free. I'd like to elect more critical thinkers and people of reason to positions of service in our nations. Champion the ideas of truth, knowledge, and freedom. Fight to protect our environment as we strive to make this planet better for future generations. Repeal laws which impose religious ideals. Return America to its constitutional roots without a government-supported religious belief. End the special privileges and exemptions that governments afford to religious institutions, including exemption from taxation. Give atheists a world in which they don't give their tax dollars to religious leaders. And protect all people. Now, they're probably a hot button one here, but protect all people from the dangers of religion, including arguing against all war that is predicated at least partially on religious conflict. And to protect all people from religious intrusion. And that list has seen a bunch of edits, and that's the beginning of what every blogger who's going to come on the site has looked at that list and told me what percentage they agreed with. And I've got about 20 bloggers lined up to come on, and of the 20, 19 of them 100% agree with that list. One person said 85%. So, you know, I think that these things, as much as, like I said, Blair's narrowed it down to 3, I think that we are able to find things that we more broadly agree on. As I went through that list, did any of you object to any of those points in any way?
I don't.
I wouldn't say I don't object to any of them. I think that some may be just different ways of saying the same thing. Blair, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, most of these fall within, at least, you know, for example, fall within separation church and state. For example, we say end special privileges and exemptions, or return America to its constitutional roots without government. Those all fall within separation church and state. A lot of them fall within civil rights for non-theists. But being specific like this is not a bad thing at all. I think this is actually a good thing because it helps people understand why why separation church-state is important and why civil rights for non-theists is important. Because I think even getting more specific might actually be a better way to do this, to be honest. But it's the only thing that I would see that would cause a problem is the political issues, because there is such political diversity within the atheist movement and free thought movement. For example, the healthcare one, you just lost almost all the libertarians right there, right? And so we can spend like the next hour debating libertarians on healthcare. So I mean, that's really the only problem I see is going to be trying to get the libertarians, the independents, the Democrats, the liberals, the progressives, and all those to agree on any one of the political issues. But take the political issues out of it, I can't see any reason why anybody would disagree with any of those.
Sometimes I think that when we have these discussions, whether it be in a public forum or wherever we have them, sometimes allowed, and for lack of a better example, let's say a libertarian, it might come across as that's 50% of the view out there. One of the things that I'm trying to do with this voting system is to really find out how many people would disagree with that. So like you say, I've lost all the libertarians. Well, maybe I haven't lost all of them if I use the word affordable. But let's say I've lost most. Well, I would like to find out how many is most? Is that like 3% of the atheists? Is that does it stand out to you and me because we hear the objections and so they ring out in our head, but it's really only an extremely small percentage? Or is it something like 35%? I would like to find that out, and the things that, we share the most in common with.
Right. It's easy to fall for confirmation bias there because I'm constantly fighting them on my Facebook page.
Right, and sometimes they're very...
Them out there.
People who disagree with an issue can appear loud, because they're willing to continuously disagree on that issue. They'll fight you on that point for a very long time, and it almost feels like you as the reader are being overwhelmed because that never goes away, and they're trying to change your position, and that's understandable. But if you have one or two vocal people against something, are they the only two people on earth that are against it? That's what I'm trying to find out. And so this voting system will be interesting. I mean, I found it interesting. I put out the request for people to become bloggers on my site, and I didn't look for anyone specifically. And I said, all I need you to do is tell me what percentage of this list you agree with. And 19 of them said 100%. I was blown away. So I hope I'll be able to solve that riddle next year with the voting system, and we'll see. Maybe it'll be 3 years from now. Like I said, everything times 3.
Yeah. Well, and also I know you're still doing a lot of work with rational responders. Is that going to play into this at all? Or are you going to merge the two at one time?
No, definitely not going to merge it. I mean, rational responders had a certain vision and an edge to it that I really don't want other groups to feel like it's part of this project. Rational Responders is just going to be another name on this list, just like every other name is on this list. Rational Responders will still be a home for people to debate religion. I want folks who like getting involved in that argument online. They like the message board, forum, debates, both atheists and theists to come on board, and obviously I hope that we find as many rational, level-headed atheists who are willing to respond rationally to the claims of religion to come on the website and be a voice. I allow plenty of theists free reign on there, and it's important that we show our side, what we have to say up against them, even if it sometimes feels like you're repeating yourself over and over. I know from history that we have many, many readers that lurk. They read, and every once in a while I'll get a letter that says, I left religion because of what I read on your site, and it's somebody that never posts. And I know that the overwhelming majority of traffic on my site is people that view at least 5 pages, they spend at least an hour, and they never post. and they're reading arguments on our site, and so that will continue to be a place for religious debate. And Atheism United will start to become a place where we can unite, completely different. And as I think all of us know, there are plenty of atheists out there that don't believe we should have that argument. We shouldn't argue against religion. There are atheists that feel that way. I don't relate to that at all. But I don't want them to feel alienated by a connection to RRS. So I'm sure it'll be hard for me to keep the two separate in their eyes. So I probably already lost that war with some people, but what are you going to do? I'll just add their name to the list and show them how much I love them.
Yeah. I will say I love Rational Responders in one portion of that site. If anyone's not familiar with it, you have the Kill 'Em With Kindness page, where a theist could actually go on, and there are limitations to what you can say, and the conversation has to stay calm. So
the funny thing with that area is I actually end up deleting more posts and censoring more posts from atheists than I do from theists. It's really important to me that the theists who want that type of discussion get it on our home. I have been in my day on many Christian websites, and they do not play fair. And I know that atheists want to have that discussion, and I know I play fair. I know that I will allow Christians a lot more time than they would afford us on their websites. And so I want to be the moderator of that discussion. And the Kill 'Em With Kindness forum is a place where you're not allowed to curse, and you're not allowed to be rude, and you have to do your best at answering arguments and not attacking the person, and I'll just remove or censor stuff that's too hardcore. And I tend to get an atheist usually doesn't realize he's in the Kill 'Em With Kindness forum, but like atheists will just be real crass and maybe even curse, and I find myself editing their stuff more often. And the Christians tend to like that area. There have been a few over the years that have gone primarily to that spot. So I did when it first started. I had a Christian who was the assistant moderator of that forum. He's since elsewhere, but I would love to have a Christian that helped moderate that forum.
Right. It's the only forum of that kind that I've ever seen where there is a Kill 'Em With Kindness, where there are limitations, and I think that's really good. It shows that at least we can get into this conversation, and some of us can have the conversation, and if we can't, then someone will take us out of the conversation. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So I like it. That's a real good one.
Yeah, I agree. Excuse me. I think it's a great idea because there are some people out there actually willing to listen, and I know I sound horrible, everybody. And it's nice for them to have an arena where they can talk and not feel like they're going to be criticized and attacked, and they can get some valuable information instead of just being, slammed in the mud for what they believe. I think that's a great idea.
Right. And it also cuts out on the trolls, too.
Yeah, for sure.
You get rid of a lot of them whenever you put those rules in place.
Yeah, or we can Brian, just, the software allows me to just not allow them to post in that forum. So
sure.
People who end up getting labeled troll on the website they don't have the capability of posting in that forum. So.
Right. Blair, do you have anything else that you'd like to talk to Brian about?
No, I'm good, man.
By the way, Blair, it was nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, same here, man.
Keep up the good work on your end.
I will try my best, brother. Keep it up,
So I can tell you guys that I've had over 100 letters or people. I've continued to keep count. It's above 100. Sort of losing track, but of people that have said that they've shed religion as a result of Rational Responders. So the message board. And I'm a believer that, the FCC has a rule on censorship. If somebody calls and complains, they liken that to 10 people that are angry at the same issue. So I think this is similar. Religion is a big issue. People aren't really willing to admit that they left it, especially because of some atheists, who made really good arguments. And so I think if 100 people have said that they've left religion because of our site, I think the number's probably well over 1,000. So that's really my proudest accomplishment with Rational Responders. And I've got hundreds into the thousands and thousands and thousands, but I wouldn't rationally claim that.
Right. Well, and I know some of them are still on there and still posting and commenting. I will obviously not say any of the names, but there's some that I've talked to on there who say that, yeah, when I got to this site, I was a Christian, and I was the one arguing against you, and now they're arguing for us. So, yeah, it's a real good site. I've always pushed it and helped it the best I could with my friends, so, and we'll continue to do so.
Hey, listen, real quick, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but a trailblazer in the way of Internet radio and somebody who helped me forge my beginnings is the infidel guy, Reginald Finley. And he started a new business recently where he was having a hard time finding a job because, his work experience was atheist radio host for 10 years, an atheist site owner for 10 years, and he was looking for real work. And so now he owns a business in Atlanta, Georgia, that has birthday parties for kids with a science theme. And the site, it's called The Fun Scientists. And, it's thefunscientist.com. And I would really like to give him a little plug here because I think it's important that anybody in the area, and I know you guys are probably pulling a couple Southerners listening. So, anybody in Atlanta who's got a kid needs to go have a birthday party at the Fun Scientist with Reginald Finley, who's now the lead science geek, like a Bill Nye type guy. He comes out and does science experiments, and they have a great time. So, and he brings all the bouncy things and all that stuff. So,
cool.
People should check that out and support him. Maybe put a link on their page or something because. I can really relate to that as somebody who has several years of atheism on their resume. It wasn't easy finding a real job. So, you kind of go in there and you're like, they're like, what were you doing for the last 5 years? Ending religion.
Yeah.
So,
without question.
It doesn't look great.
No.
You got to find the right place to hire, I guess.
Put his information up on my page, and obviously being in this area, I'll share it with Blair or put it on his as well, and we'll at least plug that much.
Good.
All right.
Well, you guys have anything else for me?
Sounds good. Everybody good?
I'm good.
I really appreciate you giving me time today, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on.
All right. I guess we're going to move right on to Phil. Phil, you there? Well, perhaps we need to wait on him a minute, and we'll go straight to Ed then. Ed, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. You got our week in curiosity?
Of course we do.
All right.
Okay, folks, as always...
Go ahead.
Okay, as always, Rachel, Jimmy, Blair, thanks for inviting me on. We're going to start today with, as usual, the weather report from Curiosity. This data comes from September 28th. On that date, the high temperature was 45 degrees Fahrenheit. You might think, well, gee, I can live with that, but you're not going to be outside for long because in a moment it dropped to 101 degrees below zero right there, and that's Fahrenheit. Winds out of the east is still at 4.5 miles per hour. It's been steady like that for the past several weeks. Here goes something interesting, though. The average atmospheric pressure at September 28th, was 7.65 millibars. It's been inching up over the past few weeks. Back on September 7th, it was at 7.42 millibars. Now, that could coincide with the fact that Mars is going into its spring season. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that to see what happens. As far as Curiosity, it traveled 173 feet. It's the longest continuous journey to date on its way to an area called Glenelg, where three different types of terrain come together. Big story, though, this week, people. And it's so big I actually had to name this one, so here it is. It's a guess what happened on the way to Glenelg. This week, the Mars Curiosity rover came across a slab of rock, which scientists at JPL agree was formed in the presence of water. It's described as an outcrop. This slab, named Hada, is composed of conglomerate rocks made up of eroded gravels that scientists believe were transported across the floor of Gale Crater by, get this, a vigorous flow of ankle to hip deep water in Mars's distant past. Other data from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter showing that an alluvial fan photographed from orbit was, as suspected, formed due to the action of flowing water that entered the crater through a 100-foot deep, 2,000-foot wide channel dubbed Peace Vallis that cuts through the crater rim and then fans out across a gentle 1-degree slope towards Curiosity's landing site. So now we have, looks like we're looking at two different pieces of evidence, one from a orbiter and one from Curiosity itself, that supports a hypothesis that water once ran on Mars long ago. Well, let's see how they get to the ground stuff as far as that evidence is concerned. The geologists, they're interested in these gravels because they indicate that those particles had been subjected to a sediment transport process. Now, that process can be either by wind or water. Let's see how they determine the difference. According to geologists, typally you start off with a very angular rock fragment, and as it's transported, it's bouncing along, interacting with other grains and the surface, and that wears away the edges until you have a very smooth surface. The key components of these gravels are the rounded shape and also the size. There are too large to have been transported by wind, which led to a consensus of the science team that these are water-transported gravels in a vigorous stream. This is the first time evidence concerning the flow of water on Mars has been observed close up on the Martian surface. Now we go back and we bring together the orbital data with the ground data that gives a more complete picture of what was happening on Mars a very long time ago. But it looks like the evidence is piling up that you had water flowing on Mars. In the future, we'll be bringing in atmospheric evidence, and we're going to try to create a picture of how Mars not only is today, but how it was very long ago. That's all I have this week, people. I appreciate you listening. Rachel, Jimmy, Blair, back to you guys.
Thank you, Ed.
That is interesting, though, that we now have, I guess, complete evidence that it has had water on it. That's interesting.
Yeah, I myself, I'm a pragmatist on this kind of thing. I'm holding out for the chemical analysis. I want to see if we can come up with some building blocks of life out of some of these, but they haven't taken those samples yet, so that's still down the road.
It'll be interesting to see how the religious community reacts when or if, I should say if, not when, if we find evidence of life on Mars?
Well, I think what you're going to get is a debate right off the bat, if it hasn't started already. There is some concern about them breaking protocol on Curiosity's drill assembly, where they actually broke it open because it was hermetically sealed to prevent contamination by Earth microbes, and they put in a bid because engineering at the time was scared that if something happened to Curiosity, they might not be able to load a bit into the drill. So they broke protocol, and they're still kind of batting that back and forth. But they're saying as long as they don't run into water or frozen water or something of that nature, it shouldn't be a problem. But again, we have to see how that pans out.
Yeah, still interesting. At least we're getting there.
We are, and this is only how long have we been there? About maybe just over a month now, and we've gotten to this point.
I think it's either 5 or 6 weeks, yeah, that we've been up.
Yeah, so this is really, and I mean, if you realize that NASA gets maybe half a penny on the tax dollar, to pull off this is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, without question. All right, Ed, well, we do appreciate it, and we look forward to next week. Hopefully we'll have some more good news next week.
All right, ain't no problem. I'll be here.
All right, man. And we do have Phil back. Phil had apparently had some technical difficulties. Are you there this time, Phil?
I hope so. I don't think it was technical. It was more mental difficulties.
All right.
User error.
Yeah, user error. There you go. All right, Phil. Before we get into our there you go. Before we get into our actual topic of the day, because we are going to talk a little bit about politics, I understand you wanted to discuss something today.
Yeah, I just real briefly wanted to get into the heady topic of death and how atheists deal with it and some of my experiences. Today is the 1-year anniversary of my father's death. Died 1 year ago today, and we had a very nice religious service for him because that's what he wanted. And actually, I had to help the minister find a couple of Bible quotes because apparently he wasn't as familiar with the Bible as I was. But the minister knew my father very well and gave a very meaningful and well thought out presentation speech. I'm not sure what the right word is, but it was wonderful. Quite enjoyed it. It was a delight to go to a religious service that I enjoyed. And then about 6 weeks later, I had a nephew who, unfortunately, at the age of 22, died from bacterial meningitis. He came down sick, and 48 hours later, he was passed. And his service was non-religious, and they read a lot of quotes from famous authors, and again, very delightful. And unfortunately, I had a third death just another 6 weeks later, my wife's mother. And this pastor didn't know her particularly well and spent probably 90% of the time talking about Jesus. And I could tell that even religious people that were at the event were a little bothered that it wasn't so much about the person that had passed, but about Jesus. And any given Sunday or sometimes Wednesdays and Saturdays, you could go hear that message whenever you wanted to. But this was the one chance for everyone at one time to hear the wonderful things about this lady, and they weren't presented.
And I hate that. I've had an experience similar to that myself when my brother passed away. We had a pastor that was there, and my brother was I'm not going to say a religious person per se. He would proclaim to be a Christian, but never went to church. And the preacher basically sat up and said that, this is the end result if you don't go to church. And buried that home, drove it home. And it was really disgusting to me to sit through that. So I'm sorry you've had to deal with the bad one, but I'm glad you did have some good ones. If you can say that a funeral's good, I will add that. But
yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it. And my dad was 81, And as best as one can, someone who's 81, they had their fair shot, I guess. It's never long enough, but it was the nephew at 22 that really seemed to get inside of everybody, that especially my kids who were teenagers, you know, he was only a couple of years older than them. That really messed up with their heads. But I just thought it was interesting that you can have a good religious funeral, again, as good as they get, and a good non-religious funeral. So those options are out there if people are thinking about it.
This last day, a local teenager died from complications from surgery, and it was a pretty big death for the high school that my daughter and her friends go to. They all knew him, and so they went to his funeral, and they came home and were just so upset at the way the funeral was handled. There were a bunch of preachers there, and they knew this kid was an atheist. His parents were religious, but he never told his parents that he was an atheist. And so they had this hyper-religious funeral for him, which, you know, all the kids were upset at that because they knew he was an atheist. And then the second part was even the religious kids were upset for the same reason that Phil's talking about here, that, you know, it was amen this, amen that, Jesus this, Jesus that, and they didn't even know this kid, that it was just a preaching opportunity, and it was so upsetting to most of the kids that were there for those two reasons, and it's really sad that preachers would do that. I mean, if you're going to hold a religious funeral for me after I die, and you know, I'm not going to give a shit because I'm going to be dead, at least find a preacher that knows me. You know?
Yeah.
Don't sit there and Jesus the whole time. I just don't get it at all. I don't get it.
Yeah, I couldn't find why that would be appealing to anyone other than the person up there who is boasting once again that they have the truth and the way, and that if you don't do it exactly their way, you're going to fry. I only see that as some kind of self-serving, sadistic thing. But
oh, definitely self-serving. And Blair, are you really sure that you want a preacher that does know you to do yours? Wow, that's.
Well, the point being, you know, it's like, well, one, there really is no preacher that knows me. But the thing is, like, if you're going to get up there and give me a religious service, at least know who I am and talk about what was important to me, and don't preach to the audience the whole time. That, you know, that just drives me crazy. I really don't want to hear about Jesus. I want to hear about the person's life. You know, you don't. And it shouldn't be called a funeral. It should be called a life remembrance party, if anything, you know?
Yeah. Rachel, you're once again, I was just fixing to ask if you wanted to chime in because you've been very quiet.
Yeah, trying to abstain from making the voice worse, but I think it is insulting to atheists to have that kind of sermon go on when that's absolutely not what they would want. And I agree. I think it should be a celebration of all the good things that you did in your life and the person that you were. And I don't think it should be such a horrible event. I think that it should be a celebration. And, you know, I hope that when I die, everybody has a party and they celebrate the fact that I lived and I did what I did. And my family knows me and knows that I'm a very open atheist. And I know that I'm not going to know what happens post my death, but I think everybody who's close to me and knows me would be terribly insulted by that, and it wouldn't be anything that I would ever ask for myself. I would want music and drinking and dancing and laughing and, you know, just say who I was and call it a day. So I think that's terrible, and I'm so sorry for you, Phil, but you had to deal with that. And I think that that's another point where religion finds a way to intrude in our lives where we don't want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when my nephew died, one of the big problems was, who do you get to go talk at the funeral? Because somebody's supposed to talk. And thankfully, one of his other uncles was there and available, and spent a lot of time preparing something and did a fantastic job. So not every family has that person. So who do they go to? Religion kind of owns that. It's just like preschools. You have this concern that your kid will fall behind if they don't go to preschool, but 90% of those preschools in small towns are all run by a church.
Right.
Yeah, and and I think that there can be other arenas. People who are not religious choose to get married in other arenas with other forms of people marrying them. And I think that us atheists need to organize that, another arena for where we can hold a funeral or, an observance of a life and celebrate it without the integration of religion there. And I think that if you're dealing with a funeral home that has religious ties, I think you need to say to them, this is not an opportunity for Jesus. This is an opportunity to celebrate a life. And it's absolutely not what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. When my grandmother died, when we went to her funeral, or not my grandfather died, we went to his funeral. The preacher got up there and said his thing, and he was like my stepmother's preacher. He wasn't my grandparents' preacher at all. And he's done giving his Jesus speech, and looks at me and asks me if I would like to say anything. And I said, not right now, because I got nothing nice to say. At that point, you've pissed me off so much that I refused to talk, because I knew I would get up there and just be pissy and about the way they had done the funeral up to that point, that they didn't even talk about my grandfather. Didn't even talk about him at all. I mean, this preacher didn't even know him. He met him for like 5 minutes one time, and it just irritated the hell out of me. So I said, no, it's probably not a good idea that I get up there. No thanks.
Yeah, I don't think they would want any of us speaking. That's normally not going to happen. But Phil, I hate that you've had to go through that. Really, I'll say that again. It does suck, and apparently I've been through it as well. It sounds like Blair has as well. It does suck. So.
Well, thanks. It a year passing makes it seem all a lot better, but. From time to time I miss them, and I'm sure I always will, but I still, for lack of a better word, maybe I need to find one, he had a blessed life. He lived over 80 years. He was almost always warm and dry. So life's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, instead of saying that people had a blessed life, I prefer to take the Kevin Smith approach and say they had a big bucket of wind.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, Jason's also on the line now, and Jason had a comment on that about a secular funeral. Jason, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Jimmy. How are you?
I'm doing fine. You said you have some information on secular funerals in Ohio?
Yes, I'm a member of the Humanist Community of Central Ohio. And I know that our organization has at least a few secular celebrants who are able to perform funerals without all the religious aspects of them. And it's exactly as you would want it to be, a celebration of your life.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, that's absolutely something I could go for, because, it would just be too insulting to have somebody up there talking about Jesus. And that's nice to know, because I am in Ohio and, currently sick. But anyhow, I'm kidding. I'm going to
I completely.
We have went off on a completely morbid subject, but, hey, it has to be talked about. Personally, I've done the donate the body to science thing and cremation after that. No real funerals in my plans. I would rather, like we were talking about, if they decide to, let the family get together, have a party, celebrate the life. But as far as a funeral, I don't see that as even being necessary.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, like, what would your preference be? Do we really want a funeral, which tends to be a religious ceremony in and of itself, even if you make it secular, it's still pseudo-religious, or are we talking more about a memorial or some type of party and get-together or remembrance party? Which is the best preference for everybody?
I would say memorial, without question. I would definitely say memorial for me.
I'm with you. And matter of fact, as far as I'm concerned, they can go throw my body in the woods somewhere, but I don't know if laws allow for that kind of thing.
I actually opted to be an organ donor, and I might in the future change that to organ donor, then the rest of it to science, and, just celebrate my life. Because it doesn't matter. I'm obviously not using the body anymore. So, I hope that I can help someone with what I have left of it, and maybe science can look at all the loveliness of, what's inside me. But I wouldn't want my life to end on a sad note, because that isn't how I lived my life, and I've lived it for the positive and all the things that I can accomplish in it. And so I would want the final act to be that everybody got together and really enjoyed knowing that I existed, and knowing that I'm happy, knowing that they'll go on, and hopefully I'll inspire someone in my lifetime to do something good. So that's my hopes.
Yeah, I've done too much damage to my organs over the years having fun, so I'm just going straight to science.
Well, I got something uplifting if you guys want to do something different.
What's that?
The student group at the University of Illinois just started a campaign called Hug an Atheist, and they go out on their quad a couple times a week, and they put up a sign that says "Hug an Atheist for $1," and they get people lined up to give them hugs. And they just did it this last week, and they even had the mayor of Champaign, Illinois, came up, gave them $1, and got a hug.
Wow.
Well, I think I saw that somewhere. That was a Secular Student Alliance thing, was it?
Yep, it's one of the largest Secular Student Alliance groups in the world. It's at the University of Illinois, my hometown here. Great group of kids that are changing the world.
Well, that's wonderful and inspiring as well.
Not sure how well it'll go over at in the University of South Alabama, but we would definitely put it out there and see if they want to do it.
Yeah, Victor on the comment section just said, hey, they should up the price. If they're getting that many people willing to do it for $1, maybe they should up it to $2.
Maybe.
Yeah, or one of the things where you just suggest donations, and sometimes that brings in more as well.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we did say we were going to talk about politics, and we've been saying this for weeks, and that was actually the reason for having Blair on today. And Phil, I know you can weigh in on this topic as well. One of the issues we were going to talk about was we know that that Barack Obama's parents, mother was a secular humanist and father was an atheist. And the church that he goes to is questionable that they accept atheists into their congregation. They are a Christian organization, but they're somewhat like the UU, where they do accept people of other faiths. Do we think that weighs into possibly where he stands?
Well, it almost has to. I mean, if you're raised in an environment where you're surrounded by a pluralism of religious views, that has to affect your worldview of religion in general. I'm not going to jump out on a limb here and say that he might be an atheist. I take him at his word. He says he's a Christian. I take him at that. I don't question that. But he has to be at least more accommodating to other religious views. And I think that might probably feed into the anti-Muslim hysteria of the religious right and insisting that he's Islamic as well, because he has tended to treat Islam just as well as he does Christianity or non-believers. I mean, he's the first president to mention non-believers in his inaugural address and in other instances as well. So clearly, at a minimum, that has affected him in a way that he is, maybe accommodating is not the right word. Maybe the right word is, tolerance isn't really the right word either. But he's willing to at least recognize and acknowledge, there you go, that those other beliefs and non-beliefs exist.
Right.
So I think that's what at a minimum, we can say that it's affected him in that way.
Right, and that leads me into the next point. However, the DNC accepted the word God into their platform this year. Yeah, so we just went the other direction with that.
Yeah, and this is the stupid thing that drives me nuts about this issue. There are two things. The first, if you watched the DNC live when they tried to pass that amendment, clearly the majority of the audience was opposed to that amendment. Okay, but they had the scripted on the teleprompter, passed by 2/3. No, it didn't. So they take three votes, and all three times the crowd is clearly against it, but they keep saying passed by 2/3, right? So it's like just absolutely ridiculous. And the second part of this issue is that playing the God issue doesn't work for progressives or atheists or anybody, or scientists especially. I hate it when scientists do it. It doesn't work. What we've shown, what studies have shown, was when you use God language to reinforce an idea that has nothing to do with God, you don't actually get the God people to support your idea. What you do is reinforce their fundamentalism. So when you call the Higgs boson the God particle, you're not convincing them to agree with the Higgs boson and accept it. What you're doing is convincing them that God has everything to do with it and turning them against you. You're having the opposite effect of what people are trying to accomplish by doing it. So when Democrats, who are clearly more progressive in the scheme of things, obviously we disagree on some issues, talk about God this, God that, they're not helping their base. They're solidifying and fortifying the opposing base. It doesn't do any good. So just take God out of the issue and talk about the actual issues. Leave God out of it, and you'll appeal more to your base and stop reinforcing the fundamentalist mindset.
Well said. Also, at the Republican National Convention, I forget the group that came on, but they sung Amazing Grace, and they were open and blatant with the church stuff at that one. That's expected, though, is it not?
Well, yeah, that's their base.
Yeah,
and they have to appeal to their base, and Democrats doing God talk doesn't appeal to their base. It makes no sense for the Democrats to do it, but it makes perfect sense for the Republicans to do it because that is their base.
Right, and Rachel, I know you wanted to chime in a lot on this, and you're being under the weather, but please do chime in when you're ready.
Sure. Sorry. One of the things that's most disturbing about this election is this whole view of God being so present in the election and such an important role being played. In one of the monumental speeches that was given at the DNC was actually by former President Bill Clinton, who stopped with the rhetoric and came out with the brutal honesty that America is looking for. It's not God that we're appealing to. It's not rhetoric that we're appealing to. And, you know, I had the opportunity to see President Obama speak at my college, which is where this all started. And he did give a nice talk. It was more of what I expected. But I felt like it was lacking the honesty and the blatant truth that Bill Clinton presented. And, you know, I really am disturbed by this whole idea of religion invading so far into politics. And what we need right now is more of that brutal honesty. We have so much apathy here in America when it comes to voting, and people feel that their voice doesn't count. And your voice absolutely counts. It counts for everything. And if you want to see a change in America, if you want to see separation of church and state, if you want to accomplish a secular nation again, then we have to speak out, and we have to be proactive. I have done that this year as far as contacting my senators about possible bills on women's rights and their right to choose abortion. And it has absolutely worked. We have swayed the vote because here in Ohio we stalled the bills that would have prevented women from having an abortion past the heartbeat stage. So your voice is out there. And, you know, you might feel like only one person, but in the scope of things, when we all get together and we show the power we have, we can change the future. We have that potential. You just can't dismiss it as my vote is never going to count. It's just wasted, so I'm not going to vote. Well, when you don't vote, you don't have a voice. You can't tell me how America is broken because you don't choose to fix it. I choose to fix it. I believe we can fix this.
Right.
But you absolutely have to vote. That's the point here. And our politics are only showing us what has been going on for the last 20 years in America. This Christian base with the Republican right has been building. They have been waiting for this and preparing for this. And what we're seeing, this ugliness and this attack on women, is absolutely coming after they know they have the support because they've been gathering and rallying for this. And we have to do that as atheists and as humanists and secularists and agnostics. We have to stand together and say, this is what we want. We want that wall. Put it back up and give us our America the right way. Otherwise, it's never going to change, and the religion will sway in America, and we'll see this become nothing but a theocracy.
Right. The other problem we face is just outright cynicism of the voting process. The idea of, well, you're just voting for the lesser of two evils. And I completely understand that idea because, I mean, Obama still supports the faith-based initiative. He's done other things that are clearly, violate the separation of church and state. So, but is he as bad as the Republicans will be in trying to enact a theocracy, essentially? So it's literally the lesser of two evils, and that creates so much cynicism that drives people away from the polls. And so I understand a little bit. I understand the cynicism. But at the same time, it's like, how do you rectify that? How do you decide who's better, who's not, and what are you willing to put up with from the Democratic side when it comes to their violations of the separation of church and state? And how much influence do we think we can have of Republicans versus Democrats? I mean, I think we have a better chance of influencing Democrats than we do Republicans at this point in politics. But, I mean, how much of an influence do we think we actually could have over the Democrats who, especially the Dixiecrats?
Right.
Well, I think it's absolutely hard because we are facing so much. And like I said, they've had time to build. And, I remember being younger and hearing all of this stuff that they're doing now. And they've rallied. And I think that it's not a lost cause. Yeah, I do feel like I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. I know about Obama's intrusion between church and state, but I feel that he has the potential to represent us with more fairness and equality than Romney. If there was a viable candidate who came from outside of Washington, I would absolutely vote for them. The problem is people fall in line with the two-party system, and even if a third party was elected, they would likely have to face that partisanship on both sides, and that would be the devastating problem there because they wouldn't be on either side. And, it's already bad in Washington with what the Republicans are doing when they're rallying and they're siding for the Republican side. And, Ryan is absolutely one of those. He votes the majority of the time for the Republicans no matter what the issue. So when you have that kind of effect going on, you have to understand that an outsider is not going to change Washington. We have to push for somebody who's there. And I think that the pressure needs to be on Obama to set the standards higher. And I think that's going to take a movement. We can't just be sitting here waiting for change to come. We have to be active to make change happen.
True. And I will say, you brought it up a little bit, the two-party system is flawed. I think we would all agree with that. However, you're right. If we did bring in a third party and he was elected as president, you think the filibusters were bad when we had a Democratic president. Wow, if we had one that didn't meet either side, there would never be a bill passed the entire time he was in office. That would be the bad thing. And while we may line more with their views, in a personal stance, it would be hard to have them actually get anything done.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have a couple different battles. One is the short term, not losing ground, and the longer term is a lot of the stuff that we all are involved in is making people feel comfortable and safe coming out as atheists and having things like the Reason Rally where people see that we exist because we're a large block of people, and we haven't really flexed any muscle, and we finally have a little bit of lip service, but I'm ready to move from lip service to pandering. I want someone to say something just because they want the atheist to vote. And when that starts happening, and a vote that's down to 2 or 3% between who's going to win and who's not going to win, and the one that comes out and says, I'm for separation of church and state, and 8% or 12% or 15% of the population all swings to that one person, that's when things start to change real fast.
And that's what's been lacking in politics for a long time. The Founding Fathers had that initiative in mind, and it's lost that because we've lost our standards for what we want in office. Terry said it good the other week when she said that people vote on a one-party ticket. So if you're pro-life or pro-choice, basically all the politician has to do is throw that out there, and you won't listen to the other issues at hand. You're just going to vote with that one ticket item. But there's so much at stake here in America, and there's so much that needs changed. And we can't just look at the one single item, but the overall welfare of this whole nation. And Romney does not have it. Romney would definitely sell out America to every country that he thought he could get cheap labor, and that's not going to fix anything. Neither are tax breaks for the rich. So I think there's a broad spectrum to look here. And while I've heard people saying, okay, yeah, there's a socialist party that has these great ideas, wonderful. And if you can get a majority to side with them and turn to them and say, wow, you've got some great ideas, let's start listening, then that would work. But America is not educating itself about elections, about voting, about anything anymore. They've become so apathetic, and we absolutely have to stop this because the future would be absolutely bleak with religion running this country.
It does to an extent already run this country, and Blair, I know you have at least a good bit of history knowledge on this, your politics and all. The original secular Constitution, where we get the "In God We Trust" and this God in pledge and everything, was from the 50s, during the Cold War.
Right.
And it just hasn't let up. It's still there, and it is time to get a change.
Yeah, the problem we face is if you look at like Justice Scalia and others, they look at things like "In God We Trust" and "Under God in the Pledge" and stuff like that as this new phrase they're using called ceremonial deism. And what they mean by that is it's been there long enough that it doesn't really mean Christian God anymore. And it's just an asinine idea is really what it is. But at the same time, they do have a little bit of a point, that most people like view God on their money as very nonchalant, like it doesn't really mean anything to them. Like nobody looks at their money and goes, oh, praise God, God is on the money, hallelujah. Nobody really does that until you threaten to take it off.
Yeah,
and if it really was ceremonial, and it really didn't mean jack, then as soon as you said, let's take "Under God" out of the pledge, the Christian right wouldn't be up in arms. They would go, you know what, you're right, it's just ceremonial deism, it doesn't mean anything anymore, go ahead and take it off. But the fact that they don't react that way means it still does have its power for at least a very vocal group in the United States that also happens to have a very vocal ear, ability to shout into the ear of our politicians. And that really needs to go away more than anything. If we can get rid of that, we might be able to make some progress in the United States with regards to this. And I should point out at this point that American Atheist, being a 501c organization, cannot in any way endorse any particular political candidate. So any comments that I make regarding such are my personal own opinion and not the opinion of American Atheists. I think I just need to state that real quick, because one of the problems that I face here in Alabama is that some of our Democrats are just as batshit crazy as our Republicans. And in many cases, we're actually better off voting for the Republican in Alabama than we are a Democrat, because the Democrat is just so off the deep end. It's just really weird the way politics work locally compared to nationally. So it's hard to weigh those issues together sometimes. It's like, okay, I've got a Republican who wants to put the Ten Commandments up, but I've also got a Democrat who wants to lynch illegal immigrants in the state. Well, I'd rather have the Ten Commandments than a bunch of lynchings. That's the lesser in that case, right?
and at least when they do the Ten Commandments, at least when they do the Ten Commandments, then you can go back and hit them with some another lawsuit and get them to take it down. Right. The Ten Commandments, I can. The lynchings, once the lynchings happen, it's a little too late to do anything legally. Right.
And I think that I think that any person who votes for, governor, senator, whatever, that wants to lynch people is absolutely batshit crazy as well, because that should not be the primary reason for a person wanting to gain political office, and that shows the kind of degradation we have to the political office right now, because that shouldn't be a ticket item. We should be talking about the fiscal responsibility in the future of our country and job creation, not lynching people. That's absurd.
Right. Well, I don't think it was actually that he said lynching, but yes, welcome to politics in Alabama. It's what we deal with.
Yeah, it's crazy. Again, this is my personal opinion. What I don't understand is the mindset of the Republican atheist. That seems like such an oxymoron to me personally. You can support a party that is so anti-separation church state, anti-women's rights, anti-gay rights. That just blows my mind. Even if I were to agree 100% with their fiscal policy, I could not, in good conscience, vote for a party that was opposed to those three ideas. Opposed to separation church state, equal rights for women, and equal rights for gays. I just couldn't do it. So that's one thing I'll never understand is the Republican atheists.
Hey, Blair,
I just don't get it.
I can make an argument for that. Oh, no, wait, I can't. Sorry.
Hey, we were all ears there. We were really ready for that one.
I don't think anybody can make a good argument for that one. It's like saying, I have no God, but I want some money, and screw the rest of you guys. That's pretty much the base.
Yeah. So, however, we do know some, and again, being in Alabama, like Blair's already stated, we argue these people on our Facebooks all the time. We argue them when we're out in public, when we have our atheist get-togethers. They do exist. It's not like a figment of your imagination or a god, if you will. They do exist.
Well, in Champaign-Urbana, it's like being in New England, but you go out about 12 miles, and it's like being in Alabama. So it's very bizarre in central Illinois because you're in the modern city, and people are used to people of different types and colors and creeds and races, and you go out to a small town with 3,000 people, and they're all the same, and they all go to the one big church in town. And if you're different, you're a different kind of American.
Yeah.
Blair and I both took offense to that, by the way.
Well, I can give that offense.
I didn't. I didn't take offense to that at all. I'm in Alabama.
As you both know, I was born in Huntsville, Alabama, so I can say whatever I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the great thing about living in Huntsville. Is I consider it my spot of blue in the sea of red. It's a very even-keeled city because of the large influx of scientists and engineers to all the, like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, McDonnell Douglas, and, of course, NASA is here as well. But, you're right. You just go 12 miles out of here, and you hit the headquarters of the KKK. Or you go 12 miles in the other direction, and you get this town that is so influenced by religion that they're practically a theocracy at this point. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
I saw a similar thing. We went a couple of years ago and toured Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, for the Civil War battle. And around Gettysburg, in town and out of town, there were a lot of people flying Confederate flags. And it just blew my mind because it was Pennsylvania basically is Philadelphia and Pittsburgh with Alabama in between. And I was like, I thought we won that war, but who knows?
I think it's actually Kentucky in between. I've never heard Pennsylvania, but I've heard Pennsatucky.
Pennsatucky, yeah.
Yeah.
We have here in Ohio. We have that too. We have very staunch Republicans, and it's hard because when you go to Kent State like I do, you see a lot of Democrats, but unfortunately, Republicans tend to rule in Ohio, we've had a little bit of a change, not in the mindset as much, but we've had a little bit of change in the office and what people are looking for, because in Ohio the Republican Party just can't get it done, and I think that that's actually a good thing. So, and we have our fair share of racism and pockets of nothing but religious republicanism. I used to live in that, and everybody in town knew your business, knew what you were about. You know, that's when I started getting cards saying, you know, we'll pray for you, sorry that you're an atheist, blah, blah, blah. So, I've been there, done that.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
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 It just blows my mind, some of the tactics they take to try to, that they think are going to work with you. It's like this idea that, like, I've never heard of this Jesus guy, thanks for telling me. You know, it's like when somebody tells me, smoking is going to kill you. Really? Never heard that before, thanks. It's like, hey, let me tell you about Jesus. Yeah, I never heard of him. Thank you, just saved my life. Never heard of this guy, even though he's on every frickin' billboard in town. Never heard of this guy. Thanks a lot. And then, like, I got letters a couple of months ago from the local Church of Christ from their youth group, and it was just so ridiculously obnoxious to read these things, especially the way they separated the men from the boys from the girls. Like, the girls had to write all these girly letters with hearts and flowers on them, and the boys were just straight typed, no effeminate features whatsoever. You cannot do that. It's horrible, Or when they come and they slash my tires. Like, yeah, that's going to make me believe in Jesus when you slash my tires. You bash my car in with baseball bats or plant a cross in my yard or threaten my children at school or send me death threats. Yeah, you're definitely changing my mind towards Jesus at this point. Great job, guys. Because what you're doing is convincing me to be a bigger dick than I was before. You're convincing me to go out and fight you even harder than I was before. So, yeah, keep coming to my house and doing crap to my house and my children and my property. And let's see how well it converts me. Because what it's doing is just pissing me off is all it's doing.
I would have thought it would be hard for you to be a bigger dick than you are, but you made a compelling argument.
I take that as a compliment.
Oh, absolutely. Of course.
This actually brings up, I know we're getting off topic, but somebody messaged me earlier today and said that, the Christians are a bunch of hypocrites because the Jessica Alquist suit and her life being threatened. And I said, this is absolutely ridiculous. Adults threatening a child with death to show how loving and peaceful your religion is. And I said, peaceful.
That's biblically correct, though. That's biblically correct, though.
Well,
it is.
We all know that if they followed their Bible, they'd be stoning each other before they got to us.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
They can't Bible literally without going insane.
Yeah. Don't forget to sell your daughters.
What's funny is at least I know where the literalists stand, right? I know where they're going to stand on certain issues and where the vitriol is coming and where the hatred is coming from. I can at least follow that brick road, so to speak. But with the moderates, you never have any idea where they're coming from, and you have no idea what's going to set them off. And to me, that's scarier than the fundamentalist literalists.
Well, of course, the problem is that before you can even talk to somebody, you have to have them explain what their God is, what their religion is, and then they get upset because they just say, well, I'm Christian. And then, there's 30,000 types. Which one are you? I can't even begin to discuss what is wrong with your belief system because it's different than everybody else's. And if you start by not getting that clarification, they'll simply tell you, that's not what I believe.
And
I think the wording is actually ironic, but you have religions that are evolving now, and you have religions, or actually religious groups within religions that accept evolution and now say, okay, well, God put it all in motion, so on and so forth. They have their arguments now built around, all right, well, we'll accept your common science, and now we're still going to be pushing the same shit. So yeah, when I normally get into an argument with a theist, that's normally the first questions I ask is, well, where are you? Because do you believe in evolution? What sector are you? What group are you?
I have a word for that. I call it theophras. For anybody that studies insects and arachnids, you should know what frass is. Frass is the leftover bits that a spider drops to the floor after he eats the insides. So theophras, theophras is the leftover bits that religion has discarded over the years, as it has slowly evolved and accepted not just science but also social morality as well. I mean, we don't go around stoning our children to death anymore. We don't go around stoning apostates anymore. At least in Western culture, we haven't touched Muslims yet. So I mean, it's like this stuff is slowly evolving. If religious morality were stagnant, then we would still be where we were 2,000 to 4,000 years ago, right? But religion has clearly evolved and has clearly accepted over the long term some aspects of social morality. And they still have a ways to go, but they are getting there. I kind of equate it to a dog, right? There are domesticated dogs, there are feral dogs, there are rabid dogs. There are dogs that are yippy, there are dogs that are aggressive, there are dogs that are lap dogs, and every religion can be equated to one of those types of dogs. Christianity over the years has clearly been domesticated. Every now and then it tries to bite you and nip you, or pee on your carpet or whatever. But overall, it's a very domesticated dog at this point. And Islam is the feral rabid dog that would just as soon rip your face off for looking at it funny.
Right. It does that because it can.
Absolutely. And, by the way, this opens up our next thing. Today is a National Blasphemy Day, so feel free to stare into religion here.
As if
okay, if we're going to talk about Blasphemy Day, let me tell you a story about my very first command in the Navy. But the very first ship I was on was the Corpus Christi. Now, for those that speak Latin, you probably already get the irony. For those that don't, Corpus Christi means body of Christ. So the Atheist in the Navy was stationed on the USS City of Corpus Christi. Now, look, to the Navy's benefit, they originally called it the USS Corpus Christi, and the Pentagon said, wait a second, we can't call it the USS Body of Christ. That's a violation of separation church-state. So they renamed it to the USS City of Corpus Christi, which, of course, at that point, its abbreviation was COCC. So we all called it. So yeah, we all called it the cock. And I thought it was great that Jesus was named after a cock that was long, hard, and full of semen. I thought that was appropriate. Because I'm pretty sure that Jesus was... I mean, after all, he was a fisher of men. He hung out with 12 dudes. He turned down the advances of a prostitute. And if you look at the crucifixion and remove the cross, what you have left is this very gay-looking stance. And all I can imagine is him going, oh, my God, the view from up here is fabulous.
and even today, in memory, they put a little piece of him in their mouth.
Ooh. During transubstantiation, you got to wonder, is anybody worried that they're getting the penis when they get transubstantiated?
Only after you bring it up to them.
Oh, guys, I got the rectum today. Woo!
Tasty.
Wow. Yeah, the blasphemy is going pretty good.
Yeah.
I had a couple of years ago, I was in a church for confirmation of a friend's son, and afterwards, one of the elders came up to me and said, hey, Phil, we don't see you in church much. Just for the record, I was there for 5 years pretending to be a Missouri Synod Lutheran, which is a whole other story. But I said, yeah, it's because I'm an atheist. And the guy says, oh, well, I can prove to you right now that God is real. And I said, well, please do. That would clear up a lot of confusion. And so we sat down and started having a talk, and he made one really bad argument after another. And other people that were at this little cookie and punch thing after the service would come and sit down next to us, and their eyes would get real big so they'd hear what we were talking about. And I can imagine in their heads they're thinking, oh, boy, I don't want to have anything to do with this. How long do I have to sit here before it looks awkward? That should just about do it. And they would get up and leave. And he and I went around and around for half an hour, and he finally says, well, Phil, it comes down to faith.
Right.
And often in the past, I would get stuck there. But this day, I had divine inspiration. And I told him, I said, oh, you were doing so well. And he says, what? And I said, you're a man of the world, I'm a man of the world. I said, you're a retired mechanical engineer, you know how things work. You told me that you could prove that God is real. After half an hour of trying, you gave up and said it all comes down to faith. That makes you a liar. And he says, well, no, it doesn't. And I said, if you thought it was based on faith, you would have started with that. You've only gone to that after you've lost the battle. And he just simply got up and said, I have to go now.
Good one.
Wow.
Good one. Which is normally where they go in the end, is it's all based on faith.
Yeah, the faith hurdle is the big one to get over for a lot of people. And I know quite a few.
Based on faith, start with it.
Yeah. Well, I know quite a few people that have rejected the miracles and rejected a lot of the stuff, but they fall down on that last faith hurdle. Well, I just don't want to give up on the faith. I really believe that God might be out there. It's like my mom is kind of like that. When I first told her that I was an atheist, she cried and got all upset. And after 7 years of debating, she became more of a deist, and now she goes to the UU in Mobile. Jimmy, you probably know her. And
I've seen her around, yes.
And she still considers herself a deist. I would call her deistic Jesusian because she kind of embraces the quote-unquote ethic of Jesus, which I would argue that Jesus was ethical, but that's okay. But what drives me nuts about it is she will flat out tell me, look, Blair, I know you're right. I know you're right that the probability of God existing is almost zero, but I'm just not willing to psychologically accept it.
Yeah, at least the word. She can't accept the word.
I don't think she can get over the psychological hurdle of that faith, of that there has to be some type of creator out there, whether it's the God of the Bible or some, ice giant walking by that farted and created the universe. There has to be something out there that started it all in her mind, and she just cannot get over that hurdle.
Isn't that an amazing system that puts that? Yeah, and it's an amazing system that gets people to be in that position. I was just talking to someone recently that acknowledged that God doesn't really do anything and probably doesn't exist, but they still believe in God. And I was like, well, what is God then? And they were like, well, God is really just love. And I said, well, if love accurately describes what you're talking about, then why not just use that word? And they didn't know what to say.
Right.
But they couldn't let go of the idea of God.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about. If you think the universe is God, then why call it God? Call it the universe. It goes back to this idea of using couching everything in religious language in order to make yourself or others feel better, and it just backfires. Call it what it actually is.
Yep. Hey, before we run out of time, I wanted to throw in Skepticon.
Yeah, do. Go ahead, because this will be played over for many people after this.
I hope so. November 9th through the 11th, I believe it is. I got my computer here. It's going slow. It's Skepticon in Springfield, Missouri. It's an absolutely free convention. November 9th through 11th. It is free. The hotels in the area are not too bad because it's not that big of a town. I'm sure that the main convention hotel is sold out by now, but they're hoping to have as many as 1,500 people. And you've got speakers like James Croft, Greta Christina, J.T. Eberhard, Phil Ferguson. I've heard of him. George Robb is going to be there doing music. Hemant Mehta, Rebecca Watson, P.Z. Myers. I mean, it's just too many for me to read real quick, but it is going to be 2.5 action-packed days. Matter of fact, on Friday they have workshops. They're going to be all kinds of different topics. I'm actually doing one on investing on Friday. So if you want to learn more about investing, come to that. And then I talk Saturday morning to try to wake everybody up. But it's going to be great.
It sounds like
Yeah, I'm very disappointed. I'm not going to be able to make it to Skepticon this year. I'm really disappointed.
I'm disappointed myself that you won't make it.
Yeah. Because that means I can't buy you the drink I owe you from Florida.
Yeah, who's going to bring me banana liqueur if you're not there?
Oh, that's the biggest disappointment is I'm not going to be able to go and get my banana liqueur. That's the only place I can find it is in Kansas, and I'm so disappointed.
I thought we were going to agree that the banana liqueur was the biggest disappointment.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm with you, man. If I may, just to be fair, I'd like to throw out some of the other stuff that's going on. October 5th through 7th is the Kansas City Regional Atheist Meet in Kansas City. October 6th is the Kentucky Free Thought Convention. October 13th is the Alabama Free Thought Convention. October 19th through the 21st is the Texas Free Thought Convention. And November 3rd is the Florida Secular Rally in Tallahassee. And then, of course, we just mentioned the Skepticon event. That's going to be coming up. And I think that's it up until the end of October. So there's a lot of stuff coming up. So if you can't make it to Skepticon, there are other things coming up that might be closer to you. So make sure you look for those events and look for them on Facebook and on other web pages as well. Get to one of these conferences, if you could just get to a regional one, because they're an amazing event, not just for the speakers alone, but for the camaraderie and just being able to hang out in a hotel or an event with 1,000 fellow atheists is just an amazing time in and of itself.
And just 10 years ago, we had, 2 conferences a year?
Right.
It's just amazing. Maybe 3 or 4, I guess, but now we've got dozens, and there's free ones, there's local ones. They're everywhere. Find one near you and go to it. You will be very happy you did.
Yep, without a doubt.
And Blair, do go ahead and hit the Austin, Texas one, if you will. I know it's a ways off, but...
Yeah, it may be a ways off, but now's the time to go ahead and get your tickets and make your reservations. It's the Austin, Texas, March 29th through 31st is the American Atheist National Convention. We're going back to Austin because that's where American Atheist was started by Madalyn Murray O'Hair in 1963. That's right. It is our 50th anniversary. Woohoo! Longest-standing atheist in the United States. We're so excited. And this convention is going to be a massive blowout. It's going to be over 1,000 people. It's going to an incredible list of speakers and entertainers. We're going to do a set list as well. It's going to be an amazing event. Please do not miss this one. If you can get to it, please do. And the great thing about Austin is where the hotel that we're at the Hyatt. It's right next to Bat Bridge, and it's within walking distance from 6th Street. And we rented the entire hotel. There's not going to be any competing convention or family reunion and anything like that. Every business room, every meeting room, every hall is ours. It belongs to American Atheists for that weekend. It's going to be a blast. You're going to be surrounded by all atheists, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I already have my ticket, so I'm good to go.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to that one. That one's going to be really good. That's going to be the big one that we're looking for. That's the next one.
And you'll get to see me MC it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the set list. That's going to be a good one. I want to hear your set list.
Well, I did let Troy Conrad know that I'd be happy to participate in the set list if he wants me. The emphasis is that I'm a last minute volunteer if needed. Him and Paul Vervenza are working on getting some big people in, and local comedians. They're more important. But if they need somebody to fill in a space, I have already put my name forward. But I would rather that local comedians and other comedians go before me. I think that's more important, that we support the local crowd first.
Fair enough. I'll catch you here in Alabama somewhere then.
Oh, yeah, well, you're going to be at the Alabama Free Thought Convention, right, on the 13th?
Yep, I will.
All right, well, I'll definitely see you there. I'm giving a speech on local activism and lawsuits, and I'll try to be as funny as I can. That's a topic to be funny about, but you know me, man. I can't talk about anything without making a joke here or there.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to come back down to Mobile and do an open mic here somewhere. We'll find you a comedy club and get that going.
Yeah, last time I was down there, I looked, and the comedy club that came up on the web search was only open when they had a headliner come through. And when I was there, that was just one Friday that month. And I was like, what's the point of having a comedy club if you're only going to be open when you can get a headliner there?
Yeah, well, it is Mobile. Come on, it's a start.
Yeah, I hear you. Here in Huntsville, we have 3 comedy open mics or 2 comedy open mics minimum a week. And then sometimes we have a third one, and then we're doing comedy shows on a regular basis, full-blown comedy shows.
Yeah.
I think you need a lot of comedy to live in Alabama.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I was surprised that my gay Jesus jokes went over really well at the redneck bar. That was surprising.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
And the abortion clinic joke, how did that do there?
That went over pretty well. Two women got up and walked out, when I did that joke, and that's fine. If you're offended by comedy, that's your problem, not mine. I never apologize for being offensive. Comedy, by its very nature, is offensive. Or as my friend Troy Conrad said, politeness has no place in comedy. So it's, if you're offended, that's your problem, not mine. And I really hate it when people try to tell comedians what is and is not funny. What you're really saying is that I'm an oversensitive twit who is not laughing at this particular joke, and I'm going to dictate to you that, what's funny to everybody else. When you tell comedians that they can't talk about a specific subject, it's just like the Muslims saying that we can't talk about Muhammad.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we've come full circle to Blasphemy Day.
Yes, we have. We've come all the way back to there.
Yeah, speaking of the image of Muhammad, clearly he has an image problem. I think he needs to hire a public relations director.
Maybe he can get a little movie made.
Oh, don't make a movie. Next thing you know, there's riots.
You don't even have to make a movie. You just make a trailer.
A trailer.
Did you
know what's
see that?
horrible about that trailer? The trailer.
Yeah,
it's so horrible. I mean,
I'm an atheist.
What really irritates me, what is offensive about that trailer is, one, that he lied, and two, more importantly, that he lied to his cast about what they were doing. And so now he has put their lives in jeopardy. You want to put your own life in jeopardy. I am absolutely 100% for blasphemy and standing up for what you want to say and owning that blasphemy. But when you put other people's lives in danger for your blasphemy, in the way that he did, is wrong. Now, I'm not making the equation that he's responsible for the reactions of the Muslims at all. I'm not saying that the Muslims are responsible for their own actions, and I do not blame him for that. I'm talking specifically about lying to the people that participated so that it looks like the actors and actresses were actively supporting the message of the video, and that's wrong.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware of that. That's the first I've heard of that, but yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah, they thought they were doing a show called Desert Warrior that had nothing to do with Islam, and he was very, very good about it. He made sure that phrases that he had to overdub with Muhammad were phrases that looked like they were saying Muhammad when he overdubbed it. If you listen to the video,
the overdub was so bad. It's comical. It
yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah, I've seen Chinese movies translated in English with better dubbing.
Yeah.
And it is terrible. It looks like somebody spent $20 to buy a green screen and set the whole thing up. It's so. I can't see how Muslims are offended by that. I would be in the floor in hysterics because it's not offensive.
It's offensive in the sense that it's a horrible movie. It's
yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
And they thought that was actually a production in the United States. That's what's offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing we have to keep in mind too, I've had, I don't know if I'll use the word privilege here, but I've had the opportunity to travel across the Middle East and North Africa, and one thing that you learn quickly in these dictatorial theocracies is that they literally have no concept, and this is the people I'm talking about, the citizens of these countries, literally have no concept of the freedom of speech. They don't understand what it is. So when this video hits the market, from their point of view, that means the United States behaves just like their dictatorial government and that they approve any video that's released. So from their point of view, they saw it as a video approved by and sanctioned by the government of the United States.
Yeah, because if the United States doesn't take it down, that means they support it in their minds.
Right. And to me, like, the government's reaction of, like, trying to talk bad about it and saying how horrible it was not necessary. All they needed to do was come out and say, we do not, the message of this video does not, support or endorse any views of the United States government. However, we stand firmly behind freedom of speech. That's all they had to say.
Yeah. And I've had that argument with the Muslims. They're terribly offended. They don't think we should do these images of their prophet, insult him. And I said, look, you've got to get over it. We have the right to offend you. But you don't have to be offended. You choose to be offended, because basically there's nothing that we can do to your religion that you don't let happen. And I think that because they're from such impoverished countries and their life is the way it is, they don't get that concept, and they don't agree with us because they're taught that anything is insulting to their religion that doesn't absolutely accept it.
Right, and this mindset is not specific to the Muslims, and the mindset I'm talking about is this idea that if something is offensive or against the rules in your religion, that they assume that it also means it's against the rules for everybody else. That's not the way it works. If your religion doesn't want you to drink on Sunday, fine, don't drink on Sunday. But you can't tell me I can't drink on Sunday. And if your religion says you draw a picture of Muhammad, that's fine. Don't draw a picture of Muhammad. But I'm not a member of your religion. I'm not privy to those rules. I don't have to follow your stupid bullshit dogma. Right.
The one I always say is, if you don't want to get a gay marriage, don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that one affects their marriage, and that's always what they say, is it will destroy their marriage if you allow.
Because the average Christian man says, hey, I didn't know I could marry a dude.
Yeah.
Didn't know that was an option. Damn it, I'm changing.
Yeah, if I had known that 20 years ago.
And we'll just ignore the fact that fundamentalists have the highest divorce rate of anybody. We'll just ignore that fact. You know who's ruining the foundation of marriage? Fundamentalists.
That's right. The guys that are out there cheating on their wives with men while they're married. Those are ruined marriages.
I had a neighbor of mine was used to be Catholic, and he got divorced and found a new girlfriend, and they were going to get married, and they went. She wanted to get married in the church, the Catholic church, and they went and talked to the priest. The priest said that they had to spend several $100s, maybe even several thousand, in counseling to before they could get married in the church. And my friend said, and he's a religious kind of person, and he says, "You got to be kidding me! I'm supposed to pay several $100s to a guy who doesn't know anything about women and probably is boogering little kids before I can get married? I don't think so."
Right. Yeah, this idea that a celibate priest can offer you any marital advice whatsoever just boggles my mind. Like, what do you do the first night you get married when you've abstained from sex until your marriage night and you find out that he's too big for your vagina? What do you do then? What do you do when you go to your priest and say, Father, how do I insert this 12-inch penis into my really tight vagina? I don't know what I'm doing because I've never had sex or experimented before I got married because we got married more out of lust just so we could have sex. And now we're going to get divorced in a year.
Have you been drinking for this whole podcast?
I should have been.
Well, we just had a story here in Illinois where a priest was removed from his duties, and he pretty much admitted, and the division of the church that investigated his scenario said that the claims were reliable. My first question, of course, is why isn't the government and the police and the courts involved in this? But the guy was removed from his job and not allowed to be near people and kids in particular. And then a ruling came from on high over in Vatican City that, no, he actually can go back to work because the age of consent at the time this happened was 14, and so the kid wasn't really a kid, and it's okay.
Yeah, those horrible 14 and 15-year-old children seducing the priest. What is wrong with them?
The fascinating thing is not so much this little story, of course, but that the higher-ups in the Catholic Church said, at the time, we didn't know that 14 was not old enough to have sex with a boy or a girl. And I'm thinking, well, if you're claiming that you have the moral superiority, you have the direct link to God, but then you admit you don't know any better than what society forces upon you, then thank you for the admission that you're worthless. Now can we have our money back?
Right. It just boggles my mind that anybody would consider themselves a Catholic at this point. How anybody can continue to support the Pope and the Catholic Church policies just boggles my mind. I mean, talk about rectifying cognitive dissonance at a level that I will never comprehend. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it is. Hey, Phil, I have been drinking throughout the podcast, by the way, since you wanted to bring that up.
Well, why aren't you sharing? That's the problem. I was not informed.
You didn't get the memo? That was
drink. Yeah.
Yeah, that was part of it.
Next time, I should have just known when Blair was going to be involved.
Well, and it happened to not be Blair this time.
I do have a reputation of party crazy at the conventions, don't I?
Well, the little joke I had the other day, a neighbor of mine came over and borrowed some daiquiri mix, some vodka, some amaretto, and Cool Whip, and he promised to make me a free drink with it. Okay, I'll wait.
Half the audience is going to get that on their drive home.
That's something to excite their day.
It's the podcast that keeps on giving.
Yes, exactly.
Like herpes.
Yeah. Well, for about
herpes.
About a month,
How did that get in, Blair?
I do know that for about a month, the number one search term that led people to my site was the word herpes.
That's old.
Yeah, I had done a story about these Jewish circumcisions where they suck on the little boy's penis after they cut the tip off, and apparently they have some kind of oral herpes or something and give it to the infants, and a couple of them died. So I had a story on that, and that was my number one search term for several weeks.
Yeah.
Well, it's either that people were looking for that particular information, or we have an outbreak of herpes that we need to take care of.
Yeah, that's one of those things. Gosh, I wonder where I can get herpes. Hey, Phil's blog can help. All I got to do is find a rabbi.
Oh, yeah, okay. I got to cut off the penis of a little child and suck the blood off. That's what I got to do.
Yeah, but all you got to do is go make out with the rabbi.
Yeah, that might go a little better with some Famous Dave's barbecue sauce. I don't know.
There you
go.
Oh,
I got to saute that with onions first. It's kind of like liver. It only tastes good if you saute it with onions and garlic.
Oh, wow, Blair.
Oh, wrong. So wrong. Okay, guys, we only have a couple
Rachel,
minutes left.
was that okay for a blasphemy day?
Yeah, you guys are hilarious. You're really hilarious.
Wait till we get going.
Yes, you do. You guys are great when you get them together. Oh, my goodness. So we only have a couple minutes left, and we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been wonderful.
It was a delight.
Yeah, it's good talking to you again, Phil. We'll see you at the next one.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys.
Jimmy and Ray.
Yep.
That was too quick, but oh well.
Yeah.
It was a great show, by the way. Good blasphemy on today, since we brought that up.
Yep. And just before I go, I just want to get my blasphemy in. Your religion is fucking sick, and you know it, and you might as well admit it. So have a wonderful blasphemy day, and fuck you, God. So anyhow, let's wrap up the show. You guys have a wonderful week. Thank you, everybody, for being on. Blair, thank you so much for helping out today. Phil and Brian and Ed, you all did a wonderful job, and we thank you all and adore you all so much. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful week.